Welcome, everybody, to today's Lake Norman Chamber of Focus Friday. I'm Bill Russell, President of Chamber of Commerce, and this program is presented by Novant Health, Huntersville Medical Center. We have the president of Novant, Mike Riley, with us. Mike, share a little bit about what's going on at the hospital. And now I've got to tell you, I'm hearing some friends and folks are starting to get this last variation of COVID. So tell us a little bit what's going on with that and what you guys are doing down there at Novant.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Bill. And Dr. Deitemeyer, we're excited about hearing what you have to say today. As far as the kind of the state of affairs in healthcare today, 6 months ago and all through the last 2 or 3 years, we've had, 30, 40, 50% of our patients were COVID patients and really huge influxes of patients. I'm happy to say that today, where my 150 bed hospital would have 30, 40, 50 COVID patients, today we have 3, 4, or 5. So the COVID numbers are down dramatically. What we are seeing significantly higher positivity rates in the community, meaning people are testing positive more frequently. I think I looked at the numbers earlier this morning, and I think our positivity rate is in the high teens, low 20s. And if that had been the case back during the Delta wave, it would have been horrendous. If you remember back then when we were really, really worried when we were at 8 or 10%, and now we're at 18%. But the good news is this variant of COVID is not terribly, it's not bad. It's like from everything, I think everyone has probably seen somebody in their world, if not yourselves, has gotten COVID, and it's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's kind of like a cold. And that's the case for the most part. Again, just like any disease, if you're immunocompromised, if you're frail, it could be harmful to you, but we're seeing very low numbers of positivity here. So that's the good news around here. One of the things that Novant and Atrium and Wake Forest Baptist and other large hospitals around the state have been doing is sending out joint messaging to the public about the EDs. Even though the COVID numbers have dropped dramatically, our EDs are inundated. So what we're basically telling people, we of course, as always, will take all comers and you can certainly come, but there are long waits. We're really encouraging people, if they don't have shortness of breath, chest pain, really serious conditions, if it's something that could be handled at your primary care physician or at an urgent care, we'd much rather you go there, just because the waits are long, and we really want to make sure that we give care to everybody. The other thing I'll talk about, and Dr. Deitemeyer and I have worked on this, she is at the pipeline to staffing for healthcare. And so we're really trying to work with lots of folks to increase that pipeline. You've probably heard about the staffing crisis or the travel nurse issues that we've had. And I'll give a really brief kind of healthcare economics on this. With COVID, we needed X nurses, or before COVID, we needed X nurses. With COVID, we needed X plus 50% nurses. And so what the travel companies did was they offered incentives, decreased the amount of travel distance, and made it really attractive for nurses to travel. And so they did a great job, and they really helped us to cover the needs we had during COVID. Well, now what they did was they took those nurses that we usually use for day to day and paid them extra and now have made it really attractive to travel. So now that COVID's gone, a lot of our nurses are traveling, and so we've got a kind of a nursing shortage in that the nurses we used to take care of our regular patients are now traveling. And so we're paying a lot of money for travelers, and the healthcare economics are not as good as they once were. So that's something that we're forever trying, we're bringing down now, but it's still an issue with us in healthcare. And that's all I've got, unless anybody has heard any good rumors or has any questions for me.
Mike, Bill, if I can jump in. Mike, a real quick question, and I'm just curious on your perspective, both not only as the CEO for our preeminent healthcare facility in this region, but also with your clinical background as a nurse. The testing, you look at the positivity rates. Do you think it's impacted because more people are home testing, one, Does that influence the numbers at all? And two, how accurate do you think the home tests are?
So I'm not going to answer that one because I'm not knowledgeable enough to tell you how accurate they are. I would on the surface say less, certainly, than if you go to your physician or you get a PCR test. I think I think the positivity rates that I talk about are actually probably low compared to what they really are because of the home test and because it's so relatively minor now that you may not even get tested. So I think that 18, 22, whatever it is percent that it is right now, it's probably a good bit more than that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mike, you guys at Novant are not only the presenting sponsor of this program, the presenting sponsor of our Leadership Lake Norman and our Junior Leadership Lake Norman. We had some juniors that weren't able to be at the graduation, but I always ask them what session they most enjoyed along the 7 months that we have them. And I got to tell you, the last couple have said healthcare. Oh, I loved going in the hospital and touring Novant's facility. And they talked about that. They talked about the helicopter, but seeing the behind the scenes and being in the ER and seeing that. And I think 3 have turned around and actually become interns and are volunteering down at the Huntersville Hospital.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about the junior program is that they come and they're impacted by what we do, which is great. I think a lot of people think hospitals are doctors and nurses and that's it, but there are hundreds of jobs in healthcare that are not doctors and nurses. So that makes me very happy. And I told the board the other day that, I gave a speech, and I'm sure that's what the juniors really loved about the stay, but who's kidding who? When the helicopter comes in and they all get to go into that, I think that really is the draw.
Yeah, it's a great program. And for people watching, the applications for the Adult Leadership Lake Norman and the Juniors. And Juniors is a program we created specifically for rising juniors. So if you've got a rising junior in high school, anywhere in the Lake Norman region, you can call the Chamber of Commerce or you go to our website. Jeff Tarte is our public policy chair, and he is going to MC the program today, introduce our speaker. And Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. And Mike, just as a sidebar, we really appreciate your leadership, both in the local Lake Norman Chamber, but actually in the entire business community. You are somebody I think all of our leaders and community look up to and value your participation and guidance and leadership. So thank you for everything you do for us.
Thanks, Joe. You're too kind. Thank you.
And with us today, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Kandi Deitemeyer. If I read her and went through her resume, we would take up the entire hour. This is one of the most qualified people sitting in one of the most important roles in the Charlotte region. She is clearly recognized as one of the 20 top most important people that live in Mecklenburg County. And I say that with no hesitation whatsoever. She is someone all the other business leaders look to. She has a very important role in guiding almost 80,000 people a year that participate through the CPCC system, whether those are people matriculating for a full associate's degree or lifelong learners picking up, their French class. Tremendous amount of trade type activities and education that goes on through CPCC. But Dr. Deitemeyer has both her master's and her PhD in education related fields of expertise. She's been in the community college system, both through Florida and North Carolina, basically her entire career. She's been president of other community colleges before coming to Central Piedmont. She's been the leader in the Charlotte Chamber. She's on executive committees for the statewide community college system. She's in a national role in all of the colleges and schools, national association. So this is somebody whose opinion is valued not just here in Charlotte, not just around the state, but literally around the United States. So we're very blessed and very fortunate to have someone of your caliber to take this much time out of your busy schedule to spend with us on Friday. And Dr. Deitemeyer, just as full disclosure, I've served on the CPCC President's Advisory Council with your predecessor and with you early in your career. And it is a pleasure to have you here. And as also a personal friend, We value you and your time. So I'm going to give you the floor and let us know what's up and cooking at Central Piedmont Community College.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Jeff Tarte. I appreciate that. I will send you the check that we talked about offline. I don't think I've ever had quite the introduction. You are too kind, and I appreciate you inviting me to be here today. And so let me also say thank you to Mike Riley to Novant. I do serve on the Greater Charlotte Board, and it is always great to sit and listen to all the presidents of the area hospitals in our community talk about the good work that they're doing to make sure we all stay healthy and have thriving communities. And as Mike said, we've been talking about new opportunities to make sure the talent and the workforce that's needed to keep us all healthy, but not just in healthcare, as Mike mentioned, there are other jobs. And certainly we think Central Piedmont can help build that talent pipeline. So today, if it's okay, I do want to tell you a little bit about what's been happening at Central Piedmont. And I do have a PowerPoint I'll go through quickly because I want to make sure as those who are tuning in later or online or watch this later will have a chance to maybe sit and kind of think about lots of new people move to Charlotte every day in Mecklenburg County. And so we often like to say, let's don't assume what people think they know about Central Piedmont, because as I've moved here 5.5 years ago and started my whirlwind tenure, I will tell you, meeting with folks, they love the college. They know a little bit about the college, but when we talk about what do you know deep and wide about our impact, it was really an opportunity for me, and I think the college, to step back and say we need to let people know really what we're doing. And so I'll start there today and kind of maybe just level set, and then I know, Jeff, you have some questions for me. And we've been in a pandemic, and when you're in a pandemic, things do change, and certainly want to make sure that the community is going to be watching today kind of knows where the college stands. I do see that one of our associate vice presidents is tuned in today, Marcia Colson. And I do want, you mentioned leadership in terms of this group earlier. There she is. I didn't mean for her to have to turn the camera on. Good morning. But she popped in, and when I saw her name, I was like, and then you talked about leadership. She has recently moved into an associate vice president role at Central Piedmont. She is what I would call not only a stellar professional, but she is a rock star. And so she actually has workforce under her purview now. And for those of you who've gotten to know Marcia, she is tremendous. And so I feel privileged every day just to know that she's out there working alongside of me and so many others, trying to continue to make a huge impact in our community. So I want to just publicly congratulate her in front of this stellar group, if I may. So good morning to you, my friend. So I think we have it set up that I can share my screen. So I will get started with that. Give me just a second. And I will, as I promised Jeff, move through this pretty quickly and just kind of, as I said, level set. Everybody can see that okay? All right. Well, as this says, we take great pride, and it is our mission essence every day to make sure that we are serving Mecklenburg County. For those of you who may know a little bit about the North Carolina Community College system, I will start there. There are 58 great institutions in North Carolina. I have, as Jeff mentioned, have served in 3 systems throughout the country: Florida, Kentucky, and North Carolina. I've spent the better part of my career in North Carolina and have served now at 4 institutions. I promise I can keep a job. It's all intentional to move around. I always felt like moving around, especially between systems. Kentucky, Florida, and North Carolina work very differently. And each one of the colleges that I've served at are very different. And then, of course, the 4 in North Carolina, both an urban campus where I'm at now or an urban college where I'm at now. Now I've served at small and medium. And each one of them, their charge and their mission by statute and code is to meet the needs of their communities. And so they have a defined service area. And Central Piedmont's defined service area is just Mecklenburg County. My previous institution, Jeff mentioned, I've served as president somewhere else. We actually served 7 counties, almost 1,862 square miles. I don't know that I'll ever forget that number. And so again, every institution has a very different kind of service area. So our charge is to serve Mecklenburg County. We believe we do that well, and certainly our mission is to transform lives. For those who just level set again, we currently have 8 locations throughout Mecklenburg County. You'll see, somebody asked me one time, what do the numbers mean? I'm going to show you each location and kind of what we offer at those, just to make sure folks know the expansion and the reach of and the depth and breadth of the programs. Those numbers are really just in alphabetical order on a map. So number 1 would be Cato, number 2 would be our central campus, and so forth. So we'll move through those pretty quickly. So 8 locations, as I said, 6 campuses. The first is Cato, which is out towards the university area. You see the programs that are listed there, and that is one of our also very popular transfer campuses as well. This is our central campus. The picture in the background I'll talk a little bit more about. I hope all of you will take note of a date on August 23rd. The picture that you see in the background is a brand new the Parr Center with our Hagemeyer Library, which is named after our first president. This is a 187,000 square foot facility that now houses a student union, the front door of our central campus, and a new library. And so on August 23rd, we will be cutting the ribbon. So we hope that you'll mark your calendars and go out and take a look. I think we launch at 11 o'clock. So please come and join us. You'll notice all the programs that we offer on the central campus there in terms of the technical programs that are listed, but also certainly central campus is the largest, and transfer is also one of the largest programs offered at this campus. We have a campus that we call the Harper campus, and it is really around what I would call construction trades, if you think about it that way. We do offer advertising and graphic design out there as well. For those of you who might not be familiar with non-destructive examination technology, every time I talk about this slide, somebody raises their hand, so I'll ask it now or answer it now. That really is a program that has a lot of capacity, and there's a huge need. It is actually only one of the few that's offered in the country, and one of the only ones offered on the East Coast. Students usually have 2 or 3 jobs, particularly with contractors. If you think about military, those are the individuals that go out and make sure your ships that are being built, your bridges, your roads, et cetera, are in fact in good shape, and that they are not crumbling. And so if you know of anybody who loves that kind of work, that would definitely be a program for them. Out at our Harris campus, most of you have maybe come to our Harris Conference Center for some kind of public forum or a conference, whether it's through business or, as Jeff talked about earlier, just public policy. Oftentimes we have conferences such as that. But also at this location is where we offer baking and pastry arts. Our early childhood education program is very important to the region and also very popular. And that's also where we offer teacher education. And then our Levine campus, which is out towards the Matthews area, is the 2nd largest campus at Central Piedmont. You'll notice there another automotive program, which is a partnership with Hendrick. You notice that also, I'll show you in just a minute, at the Maracas campus, which is the north end. But automotive systems, BMW partnership, the Hendrick group, and then you'll see medical assisting and nurse aid as well. 2 of our sites, City View is where we offer cosmetology, and then most people don't recognize, but there is another WTVI PBS Charlotte is actually affiliated. It's under the umbrella of Central Piedmont. It is the only PBS North Carolina station that is not connected to PBS North Carolina. So they now cover all of North Carolina except, and they do cover Charlotte, and there is a 3rd PBS station that also comes in from South Carolina, but actually WTVI Charlotte is under the college's umbrella. So we're in a little bit of a trifecta market. And then finally, our Maracas campus, Automotive Systems. This is where we have the first national Tesla partnership to train their technicians was launched at Central Piedmont. They now have some throughout the country. This is also where we offer a lot of public safety. You'll see law enforcement and fire protection, emergency medical sciences offered at our Maracas campus, and then of course diesel and heavy equipment. So you'll notice throughout this, there's a lot of diverse and reach in terms of programming. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it's really about students at Central Piedmont. You'll often hear me talk the college family and the board, and anytime I'm in the community, we start with students, we end with students, and that's really mission essence. And we have a wide-ranging, diverse group of students that we always want to talk about. Jeff mentioned a big number, 70,000 plus typically. Certainly, we've been impacted by the pandemic. The numbers and enrollment are picking back up. You'll see those here listed both on our credit and non-credit side. Really, the area that will continue to come back, we believe, over the next 18 months, and certainly speaking to the business community today and the leadership, I want to make sure that folks understand the part that we anticipate to continue to grow will be things on the corporate and continuing education side, where companies are thinking about how do we reskill, how do we retrain. Maybe we now have employees that's no longer the comprehensive need of our company, but we don't necessarily want to allow those employees to leave, we really want to rethink about what their skill set is, maybe rebrand them and retool them to another part of our company. So that's a great spot for Central Piedmont to come in and say, we'll come alongside you. You tell us the skill set that those students might need, and then retrain them for an aspect of the business that will continue to be needed. So that is an area that, from that 70,000 number that we used to train to the 40, that's the big gap and swing that we know we still need to meet again, as well as some students who really just left the marketplace of higher ed. We have a very diverse set of students that come to us internationally. No surprise there, given Charlotte. We usually 148 to 152 countries are represented. These numbers are for 21-22. Our 22-20, our numbers obviously for the next year will be coming as we close out after the next spring semester. 3,330 students who are dual enrolled. So one of the largest partners we have is CMS. Most people don't recognize how many students in that large school system are actually dual enrolled with Central Piedmont. We're coming alongside them. They're earning credit both to complete their high school credential as well as earn college credit while they're enrolled. And I'll show you the fiscal impact of that in just a minute. And then we have 4 middle colleges at some of those suburban campuses I just showed you. So we have about 800 students that are actually coming in the 11th and 12th grade to one of those 4 campuses and finishing their high school credential on one of Central Piedmont's campuses, and again, earning college credit at the same time. The gentleman that you see on this photo is a military veteran, and we are a very military-friendly campus and have lots of military veterans enrolled and support their families through a number of initiatives. This is a breakdown of who our students are. Certainly the age range of our students has been on the lower end typically throughout my 32-year career. When people ask me what has been the average age, it's usually about 28. You'll notice from these numbers, it is certainly trending down. And part of that is because of the large population that is dual enrolled through CMS. We are a majority minority institution and a majority female. And certainly Central Piedmont enrolls more students of color than any other university or college in Mecklenburg County and really throughout the state. I've shown you a little bit about just the comprehensive impact of the institution. So I showed you by campus. So we offer about 300 degree diploma and certificate programs, middle college and dual enrollment high school students I mentioned, but I really love to talk about the fiscal impact of that when we talk about economic mobility and how are kids going to afford college. You afford college by becoming dual enrolled. I'll tell you what a great deal North Carolina has set up. So those students have earned about almost 48,000, almost 49,000 credit hours. That's tuition free. So if you're dual enrolled in North Carolina as a high school student, you don't pay college tuition, that's waived. And so you can see that how many millions of dollars, $3.6 million in college savings tuition. So if you sit at Mecklenburg High School or West Charlotte and you decide to take a history class with us and earn a high school credential and a college credit at the same time, that goes on a college transcript, Central Piedmont, whether you choose to come here and finish that credential or maybe take it to a 4-year school, those families have saved that tuition. So that is a great fiscal impact, certainly for our community. We are heavy into customized training, and Jeff certainly knows this with his time of service, but 8 customized training programs projects in the last fiscal year is really not a lot. Usually it can be 2 or 3 times that many. Certainly that has been impacted by the pandemic, but it's the impact from the job creation there that I wanted to make sure that I showed today. And the college really contributes nearly $1 billion to the economy. And I'll break that down for you in just a little bit because that economic impact study was just recently updated. So we're supporting the community here in so many different ways. We do transform lives. I want to just quickly show you the number of credentials. Many of you may have heard about My Future NC, really trying to close the gap of the number of individuals that we need to hold some type of credential to go into the workforce as a state. And so Central Piedmont's one of the biggest that is certainly contributing to that. We all have a part to play. Every community matters, and every college needs to make a contribution to this. And all of these in terms of credentials is important. Our 4-year institution, those credentials are just as important as well, depending upon those jobs. You will see our students transfer to a plethora of UNC institutions and private institution and HBCUs as well. Those numbers are pretty significant. Our students do exceptionally well. You see there the average GPA of the 2,430 graduates we had. It would have been in 2021. We're going to give you the graduate. We'll update this hopefully in a few weeks, given the students who are getting ready to finish up this summer. So when someone says to me about the narrative of community colleges, well, I had to go. No, our students are making a good choice to come to Central Piedmont because of accessibility, affordability, but our students are smart and they know the path that they want to get on. And once they do, you can see there by their GPA, they're doing exceptionally well. And I think the biggest number that I would love for you to just look at on this slide is in the last 5 years, 10,000 plus graduates from Central Piedmont have gone on and transferred to a UNC institution. That's a pretty big lift. Obviously, our biggest transfer partner is UNC Charlotte. We love to make sure the chancellor, whether it was Phil Dubois or now Sharon Gaber, thank us on a regular basis that we are helping them be created as the largest regional university being created right now in the system. So we're helping them meet their numbers as well. Very quickly, here are some work-based learning. We know that job creation and the experience that students gain, you all mentioned earlier, students, one of the things that your leadership group loves is that they could go to the hospital and they could experience it. And so these work-based learning opportunities really do help prepare students for careers. It's an opportunity for a corporate partner to come to us and say, hey, we would love to bring a student into a partnership while they're going to school. We'll help them pay their tuition. We'll actually perhaps pay them while they are getting on the job training. And typically that is in a kind of a career technical education or workforce area. And you see the breakdown there. These are, again, pretty low given this was continuing to be during the pandemic. These are usually pretty exponential from these numbers. So we look forward to more partners feeling like they can bring students back. And also these numbers giving students opportunities in the next year. And so certainly we believe that we have make a huge impact on economic mobility. When I arrived 5.5 years ago, the college was giving out just about $1 million in scholarships. Talk a little bit about a campaign we have just finished. This fall, this coming year, we're going to be able to annually give out about $3 million in scholarships based on some fundraising and some great philanthropic partners that we have just come alongside of us in the journey that we've had about how we continue to make Mecklenburg County a great place to live and thrive. And again, building out that talent pipeline and making sure the affordability is already there, but making sure if a student really wants to be here, there's no reason they need to leave. Our Opportunity Scholars Program we've now had since right before I arrived. It really is going into the Title I high schools and providing those students who qualify a 2-year scholarship. They get a mentor, full tuition, a laptop. There's complete wraparound services to make sure that they're usually first generation students coming into higher education, that they know how to navigate it. They do not leave for any reasons, and that they know that they're fully supported. The retention rate on that program is usually in the pretty much in the low 90s, which is much better than our regular kind of normal student body. So we know that there are some things that we're doing there by wrapping those support services around students that's working. So we are so grateful to the individuals who've supported that program. I'll not read the rest of this to you. I want to just drop down, and we talked a little bit about Career and College Promise. I would say that is one of the most the best kept secrets, and it's really not a secret that I want to keep. I think community colleges is the best kept secret. This is probably the second best because there are a lot of students obviously enrolled in CMS. This is also Career and College Promise open to homeschool students, as well as students who are in some of the other school models. It's open to them, and they can certainly enroll as well. And I don't think all parents and influencers in students' lives know that. And so if this is an opportunity to get the word out, please do. Those students have an opportunity that I think is being missed. We could probably triple those numbers. Just very quickly, we recently as a state and our actually Central Piedmont Center for Applied Research was able to take on this project for the North Carolina Community College system to look at what the impact of every single college in the system, so the 58 is to their communities. What is the economic impact? And then certainly what is the economic impact of the North Carolina Community College system? So those results are out there in a website called the Big ROI NC, I think it's called, if you'll just Google that. This really does show Central Piedmont's economic impact on Mecklenburg County. It's almost $1 billion. And to believe it or not, the last time this study was done, these numbers are a little lower than they were back then. Certainly these were done during the economic, during the pandemic. So we anticipate this study will be redone in a couple of years, but you can see between operational spending, construction spending, which I showed you the building that's just being completed, And then the things that our students and alumni contribute back into the economy, Central Piedmont certainly is making a big impact financially into Mecklenburg County. And I love that our partner, Novant Health, was the sponsor of today's talk. And we created this just a few days ago. I said, you know, we talk about being a hub and connector, but I don't really think people get how many connection points. And this isn't everything. We started saying we can't put everything in there. But this really shows that through partnerships with CMS, and then we have a partnership with The Rock, which is in construction trades across from Philip O'Berry. And we have a partnership with Strive, Mecklenburg County, around with early childhood education. And then we do a lot of training with Carolina CAT, and Europe is focused on 18 to 24 year. If I go all the way around this wheel, you cannot imagine the significant partnerships that Central Piedmont has. And then there are a plethora of other community partnerships that are not represented. I almost didn't want to put this up until it was completely finished. So I want to say for the audience, because I know it's going to be a large audience that watches this back, this is a draft. So if you are a partner and you've been missed, please call me or text me or send me a kind email. I'll be happy to put it in here. But we wanted to create something that really shows, as Jeff said, you know, when something's happening or there's a workforce need or there's a question, Central Piedmont really is a hub. It's not just us, you know, outward, you see the arrows, there's a lot of the arrows inward. And I really think these arrows should be back and forth. And so that'll be part of the second iteration of this. But I thought it was a really good visual to show just how the impact of workforce and talent development and partnership and commitment really to the community and to the future of our state. I spend a lot of time making sure we tell our story. It's one of our 5 pillars in our strategic plan. And somebody asked me one time, why do you have us telling your story as your 5th strategic goal? And I said, because I want to make sure that the next person, when I leave here, whoever, doesn't have, in whatever time, doesn't have someone come up and say, I never knew. So whether it's meeting with the leadership of the House and Senate, or having the county manager on campus as we're dedicating a building, as you see down below, to our 3rd president, Ruth Shaw, or Carolyn Logan being on campus from the North Carolina House, or the governor. There are a number of other pictures we could have put up here, but I think, you know, we've had former First Lady, a couple of presidents, obviously the Mecklenburg delegation, commissioners. This could show a plethora, but it's about the engagement and making sure that individuals know the partnership and the story that we have at Central Piedmont going on. And really, that's because we want to build relationships. This is the outcome of our recent campaign that closed June 30th. It was called Powering a Stronger Future. We set a goal for $40 million. This was no bricks and sticks. This was all about people. This was about how do we enhance student access, provide assistance, support new program development, train and develop faculty. That's the biggest undiscussed topic of the future, is how do we retain top talent to turn out the best nurse, the best CDL driver, the best history major, you name it. Faculty are not inexpensive because they can go travel as a nurse rather than come here and teach students. And so we set out on a course of a $40 million campaign over the last 3.5 years. To date, we've raised 64.5. We have 2 outstanding proposals, and my hope is that this number will be almost 70 million when we officially close it out. It is likely to be the most successful individual community college campaign in U.S. history. We want to, I put a little asterisk there because once we close it out, we want to do a little bit more research, but that's what we're hearing throughout the country. We're a single institution versus system. And so really proud of all of the partners that came alongside of us and the campaign committee that really helped as we raise these resources for the future. And we have been really busy at work just internally strengthening who we are. You'll see some priorities there for the next year, really working on teaching and learning excellence for our faculty development. And then you see some priorities. We'll refresh our strategic plan and really looking at enrollment management, making sure we can retain students. We want to make sure that we can do that. And the reason is because this is the end of the slide. We start with a student, we end with a student. And this is Courtney Benson. Courtney's story, and you may go out and Google her. She has a video that we have out on our YouTube page. She's a Hopewell High School graduate. Her story is she went off to a 4-year school. She had a health condition. She didn't really understand what it was. She was struggling. She came home. She realized it was a health condition that was treatable, but she needed some time. She came to Central Piedmont. She's now involved in student government. She's one of the leaders. and she's also now a nursing student like Riley. So Courtney's story is beautiful. She tells it in her own magnificent way. We are grateful that she came back to Central Piedmont and entrusted us with her future. So I encourage everyone here and those that'll be looking at this on the playback to go out and Google her story. I think you'll appreciate the video. So Jeff, that's all I have prepared. I hope I hit my time frame. Let me see if I can unshare my screen or stop sharing.
Oh, you're fine. And we could again talk for a long time. It's a massive. I'm going to share one student story with you that I'm familiar with. A student went to, and you're talking about the impact of CPCC specifically. This individual matriculated out of our high school system, CMS, went to the University of Florida with credits already, college credits like we do here, struggled down there, came back home, went to CPCC for a year, basically made straight A's, got his life back together, got on track, matriculated, graduated with honors from Appalachian State, went on and got a master's degree from Carolina, and then had several job offers and took a job out in Denver, Colorado, and has met his wife at CPCC. And without CPCC, this kid would be lost. And that kid is my oldest son. So you are absolute, it's emotional, but it's absolutely, you were the foundation of turning my son's life around. So it is an amazing institution that I'm tied to very closely. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And it's not, and it's the great faculty and staff. You know,
and speaking of that,
they are the backbone.
Can you share? I'm just curious for people. I'm not sure they understand this size. We're starting to get a sense of the scope. How many total part-time and full-time people, CPC employees?
Yeah, so impacted a little bit by the pandemic. Gratefully, you know, for the 2 years, we kept everybody here working. So we usually run about 1,200 plus full-time, 1,250, depending on what's going on, full-time folks. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of other classes to be taught. So at the high, sometimes there's 3,000, 3,500, 3,300 people that can be employed at any given time, depending upon the semester. That all sometimes depends on how enrollment's going. So it's a big engine. And that's why when we talk about that economic impact, it's, you know, when we're building a building, certainly construction, but payroll, every student who graduates, putting back into the economy, it's a big, significant operation for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the point I wanted to highlight for everybody. When you're employing 3,000 people, you are a major employer, not just people you're impacting and teaching, but putting food on the table for a lot of people around the area. I'm going to jump in a weird thing because we jumped right to there, and you'd mentioned it earlier, is the economic mobility. Mm-hmm. And I know you serve on a number of leadership things, and it's been an issue in Mecklenburg County for a while. How do you see CPCC's role in addressing economic mobility, and what are the things we're trying to do?
Well, as I tried to talk about a little bit today, I mean, I think we're the hub. I know that there are so many people out there in the conversations about how do we make sure everybody has an equitable opportunity, or how do we make sure more talent gets developed? And there are a lot of great people thinking about all kinds of good things, but that's why I put that kind of visual together. Because we don't need to recreate when we talk about economic mobility. I think there's so many opportunities. There's such capacity at Central Piedmont, and whether you want to transfer or go to work or be at Novant or go to the bank or, you know, you name it, Carolina Cat, we really are the hub, and we're so affordable. So that's why I like to point out those numbers in terms of economic mobility, about the affordability of what we do. Listen, I think people want to work. I still believe that people want to make a contribution to society. They want to work. They want to have a good job. They want to be able to take care of their families. And that starts with the kind of work that they're capable of doing. And when we have programs that I know you can go out and make $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, and it's a one-year degree program, and I look at the enrollment and there's 5 seats available, there is something that, you know, that leaves me, we just got to keep after it, right? And we've got to make sure everybody knows the information. And I think that's the part of the economic mobility conversation, is making sure people have the right information about the opportunities. There's not a will that people don't have opportunities, whether you can work at the hospital or there's a job over here. And right now, with the way wages are, Part of the reason I think enrollment is a little suppressed is because you can go work and make a pretty good wage, and they're not thinking about what's going to happen a year from now or 2 years from now if the bubble bursts. They're thinking about, I can go make $25 an hour. I can go make, and so for them, you know, it depends on the part of economic mobility that we're talking about. Are we talking about today, or are we talking about, you know, building a talent pipeline and building someone up that they can have long-term economic mobility? You know, and we often talk about getting one credential and then building to the next credential. Because as you know, technology changes, things change. We don't want a nurse just to be trained today and never come back again, and, you know, or a welder and not continue to get their skill set. So I think all of it plays together. I really do.
In that vein, one of the things historically, I think it's across the country, is there's always been this push that you need to go to a four-year university. You know, everybody's push. Community college has had for a long time the idea that it's a trade orientation or an alternative for those that can't go to the four-year route, and that has drastically changed. So can you speak a little bit to that change from when you first entered the community college system and were a student at South Florida to now, what it's like and the meaning and how we've changed?
I'd love to. Well, before I went to the University of South Florida, I'm very proud to say I'm a community college graduate. It was the right place for me all those years ago. And I won't, Jeff, I know you've seen the resume. I won't say what year it was. But I will tell you it was the right time for me. It was the right place as the fifth of 5 children. And, but all my brethren either went to the military or they went to a four-year school. I did not. I was not ready to do that. And so I'm grateful that there was a regional campus of a community college in Florida where I went. And then after that, as a 2-year graduate, went on to a 4-year school. So I always like to say that. And I think that that's the point of answering to your question. And if I'd have started with a quiz today, the majority of people would have said Central Piedmont is all about going there if you want to get a trade. And yet 60% of the students who come to us to enroll have the intention or do transfer. So 60% of our enrollment is not about going into, I want to be a Tesla engineer, or I want to work in automotive systems, or I want to go into culinary, or I want to be a, you name it, or drive a truck, or be a nurse, or be a respiratory therapist. Their goal is to come here for 2 years or a period of time and then transfer to a 4-year school. And so that's why the word comprehensive is really important when we talk about community colleges. And you saw that in the presentation. We're a comprehensive institution. If you want to come here, get a certificate, get a diploma, get a degree, and go right into the workforce and pick your career, perfect place for you. If you want to go onto a 4-year institution and it wants to be accessible, wants to be a little bit more affordable, or maybe you just want to stay a little closer to home, work a little bit and then go off, 60% of our students, we're the choice for them to do that. And you saw the savings for certain, and you saw the GPA. That's why I've inserted that GPA from now on, because people always say, oh, your students kind of have to come. Our students are very smart. They're doing exceptionally well. And those students who transfer, they go on full rides to UNC Chapel Hill. We have a student who's gone on to Yale and other great places. So Cornell on full rides. These are brilliant kids.
Well, and kind of a secret with a lot of the undergraduate programs around the state is you go to one of the community colleges, you get full tenured staff, if you will, and faculty. I know, as an example, my daughter, as a senior, was teaching sections of Bio 101 at Chapel Hill. Now they had professors overseeing, but not even graduate students, but students that spent 4 years studying and proctoring but taking freshmen through level classes as an undergraduate leader. I mean, yeah, you're not going to run into that at a community college. You're going to have people that are much more experienced teaching your foundation classes.
Absolutely. I often say there's a place for every person who wants to be in the classroom, but there are definitely differences between an individual who wants to come and teach at a community college versus go teach and try to become tenured and teach at a 4-year. And there's again, just like what we were talking about, a community college student, there's a place for everybody. But if you want to teach at a community college, it's because you want to teach. You don't necessarily want to have to, publish to parish, so to speak. You don't necessarily want to have to do research. You want to stand in the classroom and you want to be a subject matter expert and you want to be a role model and you want to, especially if you're in the technical area, not to take anything away from my my other faculty, but you know, that transfer of the technical aspect of what someone does, I mean, how brilliant is that? That's exciting. You should come spend the day on a campus and watch somebody teach somebody to be a welder, or baking and pastry arts. You think it's all just fun. I mean, there's a lot of science in that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned welding class. Actually, having done that, you think, because I grew up kind of that background where I had my grandfather welded and stuff, and getting to play with the tools and devices. But welding today is not the same thing. This is all high tech, computer oriented. You know, you've got to be able to code and program and do other things besides just the art and craft of welding. And
especially in advanced manufacturing. I mean, if you were on our central campus and went over to our Shaw Advanced Manufacturing Center, that in itself, I think that's another area where I'm often surprised that we have capacity in those programs, because I know what those individuals can go out and make.
Well, I know Navy,
and they still have that old vernacular of it's a factory, or you know, whatever, and it's dirty. It is the cleanest environment ever because it's all computerized. Yeah, and I was looking at starting salaries of some welding positions, some, not all, but it was like $84,000 to start. Yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling. So there is tremendous economic opportunity. I decided when I retired, Jeff, I thought maybe I would take welding, and then I want to learn how to swim better and get my scuba license, because you know, if you actually can weld underwater, you can only do it for a period of time because of the number of hours you can be underwater. It's an incredible salary. It's a lot more than $84,000. Wow, amazing. And you only have to work like half the year. I like it. So it's a little bit of a switch, because we're and still stay around the high school stuff particularly. I don't think a lot of people realize how much dual credit and how big that effort is. How do we get the word out so kids, particularly those that are capable of taking higher level courses, know they're available while you're still in high school? Yeah. So the first, obviously, is continuing to make sure our partnership with CMS is deep and wide. And so I know that they have a current interim superintendent. He and I have already met, and just when they get a new superintendent, just continuing after that. The other is every high school, and really even down to the 8th grade, making sure individuals, as they're making their choices going into high school, every parent or influencer, grandmother, guardian, neighbor, you know, someone who's making sure kids know that there's opportunities, continuing to have those conversations. An opportunity for every school. We have recruiters, you know, Marcia's on here today. I know that every program coordinator would love to be in the high schools talking about their program. Just making sure that we're welcome and invited. And it's not just CMS. How do we try to make sure we're direct mailing to our homeschool, our charter school. There's a lot of other school models out there that are finding out about it, either through our efforts or their own. But it is as I said, we're the best kept secret. Community colleges. The second best is this opportunity to be dual enrolled, and that the state is waiving that tuition, and just a phenomenal, you know, savings for families. College tuition is not inexpensive. One thing to speak, and we've talked about it a little bit, but if you can elaborate a little more, and that's the joint partnerships you mentioned with Tesla, with Hendrix and BMW. One you didn't mention was Siemens. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how those programs come to fruition, what their, you know, purpose, guidance is, and are we looking at other similar partnerships? Yeah, there's a new, you mentioned another one, and certainly there's a couple else on the slide that I showed with, there's Cummings and CAD, and most of those come because an employer looks and says, hey, we need a certain level of skill. We have a talent need. And, you know, Tesla found us. Oh, it's a great story. So I'll just take real quick. We had a student who had a great experience at Central Piedmont years ago. And so we've had that program about 4.5 years now. I think it was about a year after I was here. And he had a great experience at the college. He knew he always wanted to work in something that around sustainable technologies. Left, wound up working for Tesla. And his story, not mine, goes that they knew that after they had created these electric vehicles, and Tesla was becoming really popular, and that they needed some technicians. And so he was kind of put on this project of how we're going to do that, and, you know, how do we go about this? And he had a great experience, much like you shared about your son. He had a great experience at Central Piedmont. He called and met with the team at the time and said, we've got to start this technician program. And that's how we became the first national partner. So when I tell folks all the time, everything matters in leadership and how you treat people and how you conduct yourself. I mean, something like that is unimaginable, right? And then you have they go to Miami and then they go to another market. And so there's now several other markets that they're in at community colleges doing this. Same thing happens with Siemens and other partners. They look around, or a Novant Health, right? They look around and they say, gosh, we need a talent. And it just, in case of healthcare, we talked about, it's just not by the bedside, or it's not a person to do imaging, or it's not in the cath lab, or it could be somebody who's in their accounting department, right? There's a lot that runs the operations of those institutions. So it is about the technical aspects, but once they come to the college, we often like to have the opportunity to say, what other needs do you have? And so it's, again, as I said, it's about building those relationships and those partnerships. So that's oftentimes how they happen, Jeff. Nice. It's that they know that there's a need. There are other times where, as you saw in those customized training, where the state will do an opportunity for a company to move here, and there's some incentives in that package for us to do the training. And so we're part of that as part of the state program. And so then there's the doors open, and based on the conduct that we do that business and how well we do it, it can turn into other things later on.
Nice. One thing you brought up, you're going to be working on revising your strategic plan soon. If you were to look into your crystal ball and or your own priorities or guidance where you want to see the institution go in the future, what do you see as the top 2 or 3 priorities going forward for CPCC and maybe even the community college system in its entirety across the state?
Yeah, well, I think we need to be grateful for our history and lean into it a little bit. But I often tell my team, I'm a windshield kind of girl. And I do think the thing about what we've done historically at community colleges and at Central Piedmont is our adaptability and our flexibility. We can move pretty quickly. There are creative ways we can do that. We don't typically get bogged down in a lot in terms of programming. So being able to do that with some urgency going forward. When we do the strategic plan, it's not just about physical capacity or asset management in terms of all the campuses that we have. And like everybody else is going to be looking at, how are we going to use these 4 million square feet, or it's going to be, how do we use that space more flexibly and adaptively? We got to look at technology very differently. We have to be able to move with that urgency. And so those are the things that we'll lean in. Do we have the right programs? I think every institution of higher ed, just like every business line, are we offering the right programs? Are they still relevant? And if they're not, making those hard choices. Maybe they don't work the way they have. Maybe they need to be more short-term credential. That's what the team and I have already started looking at. And I think to survive and to thrive, that's what Central Piedmont, every institution of higher learning in terms of community colleges is going to need to do. Those are not easy conversations,
sure.
Especially when a program is very cemented, in an institution or in a community. But we have to have courage, and that happens to be one of our values at Central Piedmont. So I think the team will be thoughtful as we look at ourselves and look at the planning.
Wonderful. A couple quick things before I turn it back to Bill and see if he's got anything. And this is kind of a strange question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. But you've been in this role, you've been in community college system, you've been in education your entire life. If you had the state legislature, the president of the Community College Association knocked on your door, walked in and said, okay, and the governor was all there together, and they said, Dr. Deitemeyer, you have carte blanche. You can do one thing, and we will back it, support it, fund it, whatever you want to do at CPCC. What would that be on your list?
I can't really give you the real reason because I would get in trouble. So I will tell you the one I'm willing to say out loud. Just a little bit of a joke, but not really. I want 2 things. I think if you look at, especially if I think about Central Piedmont Community College students and just kind of where we are, I would love for every student and family who's getting ready to graduate in high school to have to fill out a federal application for student financial aid, regardless of which college they were going to, because it opens up a plethora of opportunities, even for students whose families might have means. It opens up scholarship opportunities that I think are being missed. But for us, it also gives us an entree into communicating with students who really are not thinking about college or a career and technical plan. And then there's a second lever to that, is that I would love for every student to have to take what I would call we call it an ACA class, but I will say a career in college planning class for credit. Allow that to be tuition waived, of course, so that students have every high school student to have an interaction with us and I would use community colleges because of that kind of the depth and breadth, 40% do technical, 60% transfer. So what does it mean to think about a career? What careers are really the jobs of the future? How do you apply for federal financial aid? How do you think about scholarships? How do you think about applying for college? How do you navigate higher education institutions? So I have a lot of first generation students and their families who don't know. And they get college credit and career credit for it. We already have the class ready. I would love for that because I think that helps with that differential about the number of credentials that we need to make sure individuals are gaining in order for us to have the talent pipeline of the future.
That's a spectacular idea. And the reason I say that, my wife being a pediatrician, 35 years, probably over half of her practice is Medicaid kids. And one of the questions she consistently asks the high school kids is, what are you going to do after high school? And most of them coming out of lower income families like I did have no idea, don't even know college is an opportunity for them. And so that is one way to spread the word and educate kids so they do have an idea.
Yeah, and the FAFSA being a part of that then gets you to the conversation about how do you pay for college, right?
Right.
So what's your plan? FAFSA is a kind of an entree. Scholarships, is it 2-year or 4-year? It's not about the community. And if my other brethren were to watch this, it's not necessarily about if you make the choice about us. I just think we're a good avenue because we're already embedded in every single community throughout the state. Okay. And, we can do it easily through Career College Promise.
All right, last question I've got for you, and I'm going to give it to Bill because we're probably getting close to needing to wrap up. And this will be the most important question of the day. So I've saved it for last. So if you weren't the president of Central Piedmont or in the community college environment and system, what would be your dream job?
My dream job would be working for a company that, and Jeff, I've never hidden my faith. A company that has really core values that align with my faith. And I would love to do culture work with them. Both internally to that organization and externally to transform people's lives. And you notice that I'm in a business where we transform lives. I hope my next gig will be that I can continue to transform lives and culture in a company that's very aligned with my faith and making that impact. And so we'll see, do a little community feedback, give back and engagement, and maybe not, I want to raise money, but I would love to pour my time, talents, and treasure and into that. And so we'll see.
Well, Dr. Deitemeyer, it's been an amazing morning with you, and in a completely selfish mode for our region and stuff. We hope you never have another next stop in your career, that this is where you finish your career and retire. You are an impact in the region. You're clearly one of our business leaders and educational leaders, again, almost truly on a national scale. So your insights are valued. We appreciate you tremendously. And with that, thank you for spending this time. And I'm going to throw the floor back to Bill.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Kandi, we've had a great partnership with CPC over the years, going back to Beverly Dixon, who served on my board, and Chris Haley, and just a whole host of folks from CP. So thank you for the job that you're doing, but thank CPCC for shaping our workforce and the minds of our students. Also want to thank Novant Health, Huntersville Medical Center, Mike Riley. Thank you so much for your sponsorship of this program, but other things that you're involved with in the Chamber of Commerce. Jeff, I think we have John Marino on deck next to talk about Old Mecklenburg Brewery and how that's going to transform Town Center Cornelius. Is that who's up next?
That is who's up, and I'm hoping maybe this one. I know we've been doing Zoom and virtual podcasts for quite a while now, but we might need to go on site and sample this time. So
yeah, yeah, that would be good, but I have to shift the program from 8:30 to 4:30, right?
Yes. Well, as Jimmy Buffett says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Jeff, thank you for putting this program on. Kandi, thank you for joining us. Mike, Thank you for sponsoring, and thank you everybody for watching.
Take care.
Thank you.